Greetings, everyone. So, before you, today I have a Supreme Court judgment which I'm going to partially read it out to you. And this endeavor is for mutual growth and understanding. And if you're a law student or practicing law, uh, I'm sure this will be mutually beneficial. Uh, you can share your opinion on this too. So, as all of you know that in Supreme Court, it's the apex court, and their judgments or the opinions, they kind of become they become precedent for the subordinate courts to follow, or you can say they sort of become a yardstick through which many lower court judgments are measured. So before you have one criminal uh, case. This is a case of suicide. I'll give you the gist and everything. Now, this came as a result of SLP. You have the number, and if possible, you all can also go to web and uh, find out the details and read, because I'm not going to read the entire SLP or the judgment, but going to only refer to the key areas that are relevant to this discussion. So, let me first tell you the story, what happened, so that at least you can connect to certain level. So, this petitioner is seeking acquittal, and this petitioner is basically an accused under section 306, which is abatement for suicide. Now, this is the story. So, this petitioner was married, and there were two kids. Subsequently, the relationship turned sour. The marriage didn't work out, and they got separated. And there was a domestic violence case. If I scroll down, you will see. Just a second. Yes. So it all started with a domestic violence case at the initial level. And then at some point of time, there was an attempt to mediate, to remedy the situation. There was a Mahaluk Adalat, and it didn't work there as well. At the end, and during this Mahaluk Adalat, there was an altercation between the deceased and the accused. And subsequently, after a few days, the deceased commits suicide. And as a result of that suicide, 306 was attracted uh, into the prosecution. And this petitioner or appellants first went to trial court for quashing the procedure. The trial court did not quash the procedure based on the materials and evidence which were available with them, and they convicted him uh, under 306. Then the appellant went to High Court through a writ petition. If you scroll up, there you will see a criminal writ petition was filed subsequently as a result of as a result of the trial court judgment. But there also, the petitioner did not get any success. He was again convicted, and I mean, even the writ court, the High Court also sustained the accusation. Subsequently, this SLP came to Supreme Court, and from Supreme Court he got the acquittal. All the charges were dismissed. If I scroll down for a moment, Here you can see the appellant are discharged from session cases such and such, uh, and all the other things, if there were any other cases pertaining to the same suicide, they get disposed. Now, how I'm going to show you or read out again certain things from this judgment, and then we will have a discussion how Supreme Court adjudicated this particular matter. So uh, let's start from here. Okay. Uh, so this is the date on which the suicide was committed, and this is the name of the deceased. You can see aged about 25 years, committed suicide by hanging. Subsequently, on 25th, uh, probably deceased relatives lodged a complaint, and because of that, 306 was attracted, for which this whole SLP. And you can see uh, they had two sons out of that marriage, and there was a dispute like any other domestic violence case or like any other. Now, this date is somewhat important because this is the date in which there was an altercation, and as a result of that altercation or dispute, this DV case was attracted. And during the pendency of the criminal case, the subsequent, that is on 17th February, so 8th August 2013, as a result of the altercation, the deceased filed, or maybe the relatives, they filed a DV case against this petitioner or against this accused. And subsequently, in the year 2015, there was a Lok Adalat to mutually remedy the situation, to, you know, uh, to what would you say? To ameliorate the situation, but it didn't work out. Subsequently, you can see there was an altercation, and they could not reach any compromise. I mean, basically, the appellant told to the deceased that he would not compromise, and asked the deceased to remarry because he is not going to accept him. And this is 7th February is the date, and on 20th March 2015, the deceased commits suicide. And these two date, as you notice, from Feb to March, there was this small gap. And the reason why I'm saying this gap, because this gap is important, as you will see uh, in next stage. So again, based on that complaint from the suicide, the 306 of the IPC was attracted, and then this whole thing started, this different application to the trial court, then the high court, and then at the end, Supreme Court. In the trial court, no success. In the high court, writ court, no success. But at the apex court, there is a success, or there was a success. But the reason I'm making this video, I feel in the process of adjudication, there are certain things that Supreme Court looks into, these various factors, like how this dispute unfolded over a period of time, and how this deceased committed suicide. And there are various aspects such as the time period, the nature of the that verbal altercation and everything. and what I believe, and various other psychological aspects of the deceased as well, uh, which they all became the ground for this acquittal. And somehow I believe there are certain aspects that I believe uh, I wouldn't, let's say wrong. Supreme Court or the apex court should not have adjudicated matter in that manner. And what In order to understand, I think one needs to understand uh, the violence in family law and the 306, when one is trying to interpret 306 within the context of family law. One has to be aware the various nature of the violence and the complex relationship uh, in family laws or in family lives, uh, in a traditional or in a let's say classical criminal cases where you have a murder or maybe some sort of organized crime. uh, there, the way 306 can be interpreted, it cannot be interpreted in a same manner when it comes to evaluating a matter pertains to family life. Now, let's go to the section. Okay. Now, so this is the let me go to the section where we have yes. So these are the various submissions made by both the appellant and the state representatives. Now here, Mr. Gover, I think, who was representing the appellant, says that the appellant and the deceased, they were living separately for quite some time. So this is one of the arguments used by the appellant uh, for the or used as a ground of acquittal why he should not be convicted under 306, because after 2013, the first time when they got separated, uh, for a long time there was no cohabitation. So they were not living together, they were living separately. So in that circumstances, you cannot have any direct uh, contributory factor that can be linked to suicide. So that's one of the grounds used by the appellant. And then, as I said, if you remember that after Mahaluk Adalat or Lok Adalat, there was an altercation, and in that altercation, the appellant said or told the deceased to remarry, and that he is not going to take care of those children, all those factors. And after that altercation, after a few days, there was this suicide. And here you can see the gap between the alleged meeting. So the meeting they are referring to, that Lok Adalat meeting, and the date of suicide. There is no immediate instigation or abetment to commit suicide which can be attributed to the appellants. And this ground is something that Supreme Court used in a positive manner. So this argument was taken in a positive manner, taken into consideration by the apex court for the acquittal. Now, this is where I think the first mistake that was committed by the apex court, and I'm going to give you the my rationality. You can also tell me whether you think otherwise. One needs to understand that the suicide, now one needs to look at suicide at this level, at a neurochemical level. you cannot look at it at some social or socio-economic manner, because in that way, I mean, because the major cause of suicide is your psychological condition. And what, in a manner, Supreme Court, the apex court is trying to say is that if you are if there is an altercation and if you commit the suicide on the next day, or let's say the very next moment, then only uh, the cause of suicide can be attributed to that event. Otherwise, if there is a gap, then it cannot be attributed all the time, or at least in this case, it the Supreme Court did not. The Supreme Court held it as a valid ground. Now, the problem with this is this: uh, suicidal thought is not something that uh, it happens with an individual uh, enough in a moment. It's not a result of a momentary thought or a momentary decision. There is an ideation period. Uh, every suicidal cases uh, or that has ever happened on the planet, there is an ideation period. So the root cause and the effect of the suicide, there will always be some time gap. If you look at suicide cases in case of financial dispute, like especially in US, many suicide uh, happens because the person feels so helpless and sort of feels trapped, and finding no other solution, decides to take his or her life. And the credit card is one of the key factors. There have been studies that this credit card, how dangerous is this credit card trap is. And next to credit card, there are social issues as well, especially the family life also have been a major contributor for suicides. And again, as I was saying, that these are not a result of momentary thought or reflection of an event, rather a series of events that gradually keep accumulating, and uh, over a period, after, when the person really gets saturated with helplessness and the stress and the anxiety, usually that is when the person decides to take his or her life. So uh, making it, or if the presupposition is that the cause and effect has to be uh, in a short span of time, I think that's a misadjudication in the context, because uh, this could have been a valid proposition had it been a normal, or in some other criminal cases. For example, let's say that uh, I am, provoking someone, asking someone to commit suicide, for, or threatening that if you don't commit suicide, I will kill you, something like that. So there, the cause and effect, both are present, exist in a very short span of time, or the timeline is very short. So it can be, the suicide is a result of the instigation or provocation. But it's when it comes to family dispute, or any other socio-economical dispute, it doesn't work in the same manner. Uh, I can get into much details, get into different neurochemicals, explain through different neurochemicals what happens when you are depressed, what happens when you are depressed for a long time, how your body reacts, your cognition or your psychological state. But anyway, the point being uh, is this, that this particular presupposition, this principle that unless the cause and effect are uh, in a short time span, if they are in distance, if there is a time gap, then it cannot be considered as as a I mean cause of that. I mean the suicide is not a cause of that, or rather something psychological, is not a very rational one. I think the better approach is we take a slightly different view in this context. That is, what because see this person, and I'm not again saying that this person is, but this is what my understanding or my rationality is, that this person was married sometime, there were two kids, and though this judgment doesn't talk about this particular aspect of taking reasonable care of your in this case it will be the wife. And why I'm saying this is very important, because depression and the helplessness, there is a strong correlation. If a person feels helpless, if a person feels left out in a society, it become I mean the depression is the first thing that strikes, and the prolonged depression, or as the time passes, the density of the depression keeps growing. I mean, depression doesn't work same way in many other cases, where as like maybe sadness, as time passes, you get better. But depression doesn't work in the same manner. If you get depressed, as time progresses, your level of depression also keeps increasing. And the last is the suicide. So unless and until some sort of intervention is there. Now, in this particular context, the intervention would have been the reasonable care, whether the husband took the reasonable care of the wife or not. If, because once you are married and you don't take any reasonable care to your wife or to your kids, that puts tremendous pressure on your spouse. There would be sociological pressure, there will be psychological pressure, there will be financial pressure. So all these things start accumulating in a very complex psychological manner. And the only time I believe an a spouse can be absolved in case of in the similar circumstances, if there was a suicide, let's say, only time the spouse can be absolved from the cause of the suicide if the husband took the reasonable care. And that could be financial, that could be the sociological, and any other things that might be relevant. But without that reasonable care, I think it is fair to say that this negligence, this indifference, attributes that amount to cruelty, and then the cruelty leads to suicide. Now again, the punishment for suicide is around 10 years. Now that also I believe is somewhat uh, erring view, because you cannot see uh, I mean, for murder again you have almost similar punishment, and uh, a murder and a suicide for something that is a tragic. Definitely it is tragic both for both the individuals, not only for the deceased family, also for the spouse also. It's a tragic, and it cannot be, the spouse cannot be prosecuted in that same manner. There should be some prosecution, but it cannot be within the existing framework. In our IPC, in BS, there are countless cases where, uh, if you look at, the punishment for a murderer and the punishment for a drug dealer or somebody, often they are same, but uh, there are arguments that can be put forward that they cannot be viewed in the same manner. And then again, when it comes to murder, as we know from our social fabric, there are different kinds of murder. When the murder is committed by a soldier, it is different. When a murder is committed by an hospital, again it is different. Or death happens due to a negligence, it is different. And again, when death happens due to negligence in the hospital, again it is different. And when negligence happens by big pharma companies or institutions, it is different. So in all these cases, the effect remained the same. There is a death, but the cause factors are different. And then uh, we have a different punishment. We have punishment that are often similar. So there, I believe there are a lot of irrationality that's still prevalent across IPC and BNS. Something I'm sure Apex Court can look into. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. Let me know, what do you think about it?